Blueprint. It's the blueprint for you. It's what makes you, you. 100 years ago, we didn't know of the existence of DNA. It's only been 50 years since we've known its structure. But now it's beginning to yield some secrets. Put your hands up if you've got blue eyes. Keep your hands up if you're a Northern European. Yes, you are. If I'd asked that same question, quite a few of you, maybe 40%, if I'd asked that same question in China, it would have been almost 0%. The gene for blue eyes is completely suppressed in the population. It's what makes Northern Europeans. And it's not just eyes and hair and obvious things like that. We're finding genes for everything. Genes for different kinds of illnesses, for criminality. Who knows? There may be even a gene for what kind of car you like to drive. But those secrets are slowly being yielded up. We're slowly beginning to unwind this DNA. So I thought, it's time for a project. Project Edward Till. I'm going to have a look at my DNA, and I was very grateful to receive a DNA testing kit for my birthday. So when most people were unwrapping presents and playing with their same toys, I was removing DNA matter from the inside of my mouth. Now, I could talk to you a lot about the science. It's fascinating. But what's so much more interesting are the stories. You see, I'm really like my father. I've got his looks, I have an interest in things that are historical, I'm quite balanced, but I'm also quite a lot like my mother. I have an interest in foreign cultures and languages, and when I get mad, I get really, really mad. So, I had no doubt that my X chromosome came from my mother, and my Y chromosome came from my father. But how much of what makes me me is nature, and how much of it is nurture? And that's why I did the test. So, you get the results back, you get really excited, and what do you get? And in the case of my father, I got this. R1b. Okay, it's really, really interesting, but it's not going to make anyone excited. It's just basically a type of DNA. But that's not where it starts. What is R1b? Well, I had to do some research, and I found out. And we need to go back 15,000 years. And we are going to go to the end of the last ice age. 15,000 years ago, the whole of the north of Europe was covered by glacier. You can see here that Leipzig, where we are today, was probably not the place to be, being just outside of this zone. And there were no trees between there and the north of Spain. Really, you would not want to be in northern parts of Europe. So where did people go? They went to enclaves. They went to safe places below the tree line. And one particular group was R1b. They came from the Basque country. And they stayed there while the sheets of ice were above there. When they talked about ice breaking, they really meant ice breaking. These were people who were destined to travel north. As the ice receded, they moved north. Now, this modern map of Europe is worth remembering because over all this ice, there was no Baltic at that time, the sea levels were much lower. So they were able to walk very easily into the British Isles. Then, as the ice melted, the sea level rose, the British Isles became the British Isles, and they were already there. Wow. I can't get over this. This means that my DNA is among the original population of the British Isles. It means that we've been there since the beginning of time, right the way through history, right the way through all of the difficulties and things. They have been there. They've learned to speak Germanic languages, they've learned to cope with all kinds of things. It's amazing. When recently I had to fill in an application form on what basis do I claim my British nationality, I just wrote R1b. I mean, I come from there. That's absolutely brilliant. But what about my mother? Well, on Christmas morning, as it happened, I received this, another oblique reference. It's H11A. Basically, H is Europe. And the higher they get, the later it was. And this is quite a high number. So there's not much known about this group. And all that they could really say was where are the populations from. So, would I be from the Caucasus? Possibly. Could I be from somewhere in Syria? Maybe. But I think that I'm from the epicenter, Slovakia. Slovakia is where up to 12% of the population share the H11A. And if it weren't for some family history, it would stop there. But I found out something more about my family recently. After my grandmother died 3 years ago, we discovered that she was Jewish. We had never known this fact, and it turned out that she had kind of kept it from us, and even my mother didn't know about this until after her mother died. So what does that mean? Well, it's a story maybe, but my theory is this, that they were Slovakian Jews, and for whatever reason they decided to leave Slovakia. Perhaps there was a pogrom, perhaps they just wanted a better life in Britain, but they moved there, and they brought the genes with them. And it's just as well they did, because that came down to me. So I find this really inspiring. At one level, I'm very like my father. I've got that very British side. On the other side, I've got my mother. I've got that more European. I feel very much at home here in Central Europe. And it's not too much of a leap to say that that's somehow related to my genes. And I'm just this project. I am one project. All of you are projects too. In time, we can all go out and get our genes tested. We'll find out more and more about this. More and more about the stories of what makes us us. And I've entitled this speech, The Ultimate Icebreaker, simply because, well, partly in reference to my ancestors who broke the ice, but primarily because in a way I've learned more about myself in the last year than I ever have before. And I'd really like to inspire you to go out and find out more about your background. Mr. Secretary.